Hello friends, welcome to the class of Cost and Works Accounting. In previous video, we have covered the material cost. So in this video, we are going to learn about labor cost and other expenses. So let us start. This is the disclaimer statement of this particular video. Labor cost. So let us see the first definition of labor cost, which is given by ICMA London. So the institute defines labor cost, the cost of remuneration, that is wages, salaries, commission, bonus, etc. of the employees of an undertaking. So you can see there are many things have been covered in this particular definition. They have covered wages, they have also covered salaries, they have covered also commission and bonus. Okay, so basically whenever there is a manufacturing activity and there is a conversion of raw material to finished product, so whatever amount is paid for human effort for this conversion will be covered under the head labor cost. So this labor cost is again divided into two parts. One, that is direct labor, and second, it is indirect labor. Let us see direct and indirect labor. So direct labor cost, it is nothing but the cost paid to the workers who are engaged directly in manufacturing activity. Okay, and indirect cost, that is the cost paid to the workers who are not directly engaged in the production operation. So here is a difference, that the person who has been actually working on the conversion activity, conversion of raw material into finished product, will be uh, covered under this particular definition or direct labor. Whereas the person who is not actually converting, who is not actually uh, working directly engaged in the production, but which who is generally assist or help to the production operations, will be covered under the head uh, indirect labor, the amount which is paid to the such person. Okay, so direct labor, we can give an example, that is wages paid to the carpenter. In earlier video, in material cost, we have seen one sofa set, right? So converting that raw material which is used in preparation of sofa, that is wood, then cloth, nails, the conversion of these three things into a sofa set, it requires specialized person, skilled person, and that is the carpenter. So the amount paid to the carpenter will be covered under the direct labor, whereas the person who is assisting to that carpenter in preparation of sofa will be covered under the indirect labor. Or the wages paid to the foreman or supervisors, who are supervising all the workers who are engaging in the manufacturing activity, will be covered as an indirect labor. Now let us see the difference. What is the difference between the labor, direct labor and indirect labor? So first, there is a direct engagement of in respect of conversion of raw material to the finished product in case of direct labor, whereas there is no direct engagement in conversion of raw material to finished product. Second thing, that whatever amount is paid to the direct labor can be identified with the product. Means you can identify the amount which is paid to the specialized person. For example, for preparation of sofa, once again, so amount paid to the carpenter, we need to add that amount to the final price of a sofa, right? Because he is a skilled person. So we can identify direct labor with the product. Whereas regarding indirect labor, we cannot identify it with the product. Okay. For direct labor, examples are wages paid to the banker, shoemaker, or tailor, etc. And examples of indirect labor is wages paid to supervisor, clerk, peon, watchman, etc. Now let us see the other expenditure. So again, the ICMA London has already been defined. What do you mean by other expenditure? The cost of services provided to an undertaking and the notional cost of use of own assets will be covered under the other expenditure. So here we need to consider the notional cost also. Now notional cost, if you remember, we have already seen the definition of cost. In that we have covered the notional. What do you mean by notional cost, right? At that time I have given the example of depreciation, right? We use the asset and we charge depreciation to the profit and loss account, right? So it is a notional cost incurred for use of asset. Okay, so uh, this other expenditure are again classified into two parts. One, that is the direct expenses, and second is the indirect expenses. Let us see the direct expenses. So the expenses which can be identified with and allocated to the cost center and cost unit, that is production expenses, will be known as or will be covered under the head direct expenses. For example, hire of a special plant, royalties, cost of patents, etc. In case of indirect expenses, these expenses cannot be charged directly to the production, but can be apportioned to or absorbed by the cost center or cost unit. The example of these expenses are salary of general manager or canteen expenses or rent, etc. Let us see the difference between the direct expenditure and indirect expenditure. So first, that is identification with the product. Yes, it is possible to identify the direct expenditure with the product, but it is equally impossible, it is difficult to identify these expenditure with the product. So it is not possible to identify the indirect expenditure. Second thing, these expenditure are also known as chargeable expenditure. Okay, and in case of indirect expenses, these expenses are called as or known as non-chargeable expenses. Another and very important part, important distinction or difference, that is, all direct expenses, they are the part of prime cost, whereas the indirect expenses are the part of overheads. Examples of direct expenses again, royalty, carriage inward, etc. And examples of indirect expenses are carriage outward, insurance, etc. So if we add up together direct material, direct labor and direct expenditure, this will be our prime cost. And if we add the indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenditure. This is known as overheads. So these overheads are again classified into different subheads. For example, factory overheads. So whatever expenditure we incurred in factory will be known as factory overheads. Office overheads, the expenditure we incur in office. Then selling overheads, the expenditure we incurred for selling the goods. And distribution overheads, the expenditure we incurred for distribution of goods. So this is nothing but the one of the classification of the overheads. In detail, we are going to see in the upcoming videos. Okay, so this is again a disclaimer statement of this particular video. For more videos, you can also log on to our YouTube channel, Rayat Knowledge Bank. Thank you. Thank you very much.